The grand, ancient corridors of Britain's historic palaces are no strangers to tension, yet the atmosphere settling over the royal household this week carries a distinct, sharp edge of exhaustion. For centuries, the inner workings of the monarchy have relied on a carefully orchestrated semblance of predictability, where every announcement, departure, and arrival is mapped out months in advance with military precision. But in the modern era, that timeless rhythm has been repeatedly disrupted by a modern phenomenon, an unpredictable whirlwind of public relations maneuvers, late-night media briefings, and conflicting narratives operating across a massive transatlantic divide. Behind the heavy oak doors of Buckingham Palace, senior courtiers and staff are currently facing an all-too-familiar sense of chaos, navigating a situation that changes not just by the day, but by the hour. The institution that prides itself on stability and absolute certainty is once again caught in the middle of a shifting, volatile media landscape, forced to react to a series of strategic maneuvers that seem specifically designed to keep the world guessing. This is not merely a logistical headache for the royal staff. It represents a deeper, ongoing struggle for control over the public narrative, a battle played out in the headlines of global publications before anyone has even boarded a flight. As the summer weeks progress, the stakes are rising, and the institutional patience of the British monarchy is being tested in ways that evoke the most turbulent moments of recent history. If you wish to stay fully informed on the shifting dynamics of the House of Windsor and receive deep investigative breakdowns of these unfolding developments as they happen, please take a brief moment to subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you never miss an exclusive episode. The current state of uncertainty has turned what should have been a highly structured institutional countdown into a high-stakes guessing game that has left even the most seasoned royal insiders completely in the dark. Just days ago, a definitive narrative seemed to be taking shape across major international media outlets, with confident declarations that a major family gathering was absolutely locked into the calendar. The reports were specific, suggesting that by Friday night, a grand, highly anticipated arrival was not just a possibility, but an absolute certainty, representing a monumental shift in a family dynamic that has been frozen in ice for years. Yet, as the sun rose on Saturday, the landscape shifted entirely, dissolving that hard-earned certainty into a cloud of conflicting reports, denials, and deep confusion. Even those who operate within the immediate inner circle of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were reportedly receiving wildly contradictory pieces of information, with one briefing canceling out the last in a dizzying display of public relations turbulence. Meanwhile, on the side of the royal household, the response was one of absolute bewilderment, with officials quietly admitting they had not a single clue as to what was actually happening or what to expect in the coming days. This lack of communication and coordination underscores the profound breakdown in trust that has come to define the relationship between the self-exiled royals in California and the institutional core in London. What was supposed to be a carefully managed milestone has instead devolved into a familiar pattern of chaos, where public announcements precede official confirmation, leaving the palace to pick up the pieces and react to a script they did not write. The roots of this specific media storm trace back several months, originating from strategic briefings that began leaking into the press regarding the upcoming Invictus Games scheduled for Birmingham in 2027. For the Duke of Sussex, this project remains a crowning achievement, a highly respected international sporting event for wounded, injured, and sick servicemen and women that has consistently provided him with a platform of genuine purpose and positive global visibility. The countdown to the 2027 Games was always going to require his presence in the United Kingdom this July, a formal obligation that could have easily been handled with the quiet dignity appropriate for such a cause. Early on, sources close to the Sussex camp began dropping carefully placed hints that this trip would be far more than a solo executive visit, teasing a much larger and more significant family milestone. Team Sussex explicitly briefed selected media outlets that Meghan, now 44, would be joining her husband for the high-profile countdown events in the Midlands, marking a rare and highly symbolic return to British soil. This initial revelation immediately sent shockwaves through the media, but it was merely the opening salvo in a much larger, multi-staged public relations campaign that would culminate just this month. A second, even more impactful wave of leaks soon followed, confidently asserting that the couple would not be traveling alone, but would be bringing their young children with them. If carried out, this would mark the very first time the young family has set foot together in the United Kingdom in 4 long years, an anniversary heavy with emotional weight and institutional implications. To the public, this sequence of announcements was presented as a beautiful, hopeful prelude to a long-awaited family reunion, a chance for a grandfather to connect with grandchildren he has barely seen. To those who study the monarchy closely, however, the rapid succession of these deliberate media drops look less like family planning and far more like a highly aggressive, calculated public relations offensive. The sheer velocity of the information flow has created an intense, almost suffocating atmosphere of anticipation, forcing a private family dilemma into the bright, unforgiving glare of the global media spotlight before any official channels could validate the plans. The sudden and intense flurry of public relations announcements from California quickly transformed a low-key charity countdown into an explosive media spectacle, sending shockwaves through the highest echelons of the British establishment. For a brief moment, the public narrative surrounding this impending summer visit shifted toward the enticing possibility of a grand, dramatic rapprochement between an aging monarch and his estranged younger son. Commentators and royal watchers began to speculate wildly about the profound emotional weight behind such a reunion, pointing out that King Charles, now 77, has been forced by circumstances and vast geographical distance to watch his youngest grandchildren grow up fast on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, largely through rare digital screens rather than personal, affectionate contact. For a sovereign who values family unity and has faced significant personal health battles over the past year, the prospect of holding his grandchildren in his arms on British soil carried an undeniably powerful, almost poetic appeal. There were whispers that perhaps, after years of bitter public recriminations, explosive memoirs, and devastating television interviews, a quiet, pragmatic truce was finally within reach, brokered by the innocent presence of the next generation. But within the quiet, imposing rooms of Buckingham Palace, where institutional memory runs deep and emotional impulses are always tempered by historical precedent, this highly sentimental public narrative was viewed with deep skepticism and growing frustration. It is not entirely clear to those embedded within the royal household that this sudden public overture is being handled with the respect, discretion, and sincerity required for true familial healing. Instead, palace officials view the constant stream of media briefings and tactical leaks as a direct and tiresome provocation, a continuation of an exhausting psychological drama that pushes the monarchy's institutional patience to its absolute limits. From the palace's perspective, the Sussexes have once again taken what could have been a deeply private, peaceful, and constructive family moment and deliberately manufactured a high-stakes public relations disaster. As one highly placed insider familiar with the intricate dynamics of the situation noted with weary resignation, the palace would have been perfectly happy to facilitate a quiet, completely low-key visit for the sake of family harmony and the emotional well-being of the king. Yet, rather than choosing the path of quiet diplomacy and private coordination, the California-based team chose to broadcast these intimate family intentions to the global press, turning a delicate personal matter back into an ongoing, sensationalized media soap opera. This repetitive cycle of public declaration, followed by institutional scramble, has left the royal staff exhausted, forced to navigate a logistical and security nightmare that was entirely unprovoked and entirely unnecessary. The depth of the logistical disconnect between the two sides becomes startlingly clear when examining the basic arrangements for the upcoming visit, which are now precariously close to collapsing under the weight of this public friction. In a genuine effort to show goodwill and ensure the safety and comfort of the family during their stay, the royal household extended a formal offer for the Sussexes to use a secure, fully managed royal residence for the duration of their time in the United Kingdom. This offer was intended to solve multiple problems simultaneously, providing the necessary security cordon, keeping the family within close proximity to the king, and preventing the media from tracking their daily movements. Yet, with mere days to go before their scheduled arrival on British soil, that generous and strategic offer from the palace has not even been officially accepted or acknowledged by the Duke's team. This astonishing delay has left royal coordinators scratching their heads in absolute bewilderment, unable to finalize essential security details, arrange staff schedules, or prepare the property for young children. To seasoned observers, this refusal to accept palace accommodation suggests a profound lack of trust and a stubborn desire to maintain total independence, even at the cost of basic operational efficiency and family harmony. While it is widely understood that King Charles is an inherently pragmatic man who is deeply unwilling to completely reject any sincere overture to see his beloved grandchildren, the chaotic events of recent days are making it almost impossible for him to do so. The administration of a modern monarchy requires an absolute adherence to protocol and planning, and when private family visits are transformed into aggressive media campaigns, the institutional machinery of the palace is forced to protect the crown above personal desires. This delicate situation grew infinitely more complicated when the Sussexes' side began hinting heavily that a significant change had recently occurred regarding the official arrangements for the Duke's personal protection within the United Kingdom. In a series of highly calculated media drop-ass, it was subtly suggested to selected journalists that a major breakthrough had been achieved, implying that the king himself might have personally stepped in to override standard protocols and guarantee state-funded security. This explosive claim was immediately and forcefully knocked down by royal insiders and government officials, who made it absolutely clear that the sovereign does not possess the constitutional authority to manipulate state security operations for private individuals. The rapid denial from London exposed the massive gulf between the reality of the situation and the narrative being spun by the California public relations machine, which seemed intent on creating the illusion of official royal capitulation. This public dispute over security arrangements is not an isolated incident. It is the continuation of a long, bitter, and highly litigious battle that Prince Harry has waged against the British establishment ever since his departure from official royal duties. Few within the royal circle have forgotten the intense fury and public resentment the Duke displayed last year after losing his high-profile court battle against the Home Office. That legal challenge was centered on the decision made by the Ravec Security Committee back in 2020, which stripped him of his automatic 24-hour police guard when he chose to step down as a working royal and relocate to North America. Harry publicly labeled that administrative decision as a calculated establishment stitch-up, an unfair and vindictive move designed to punish him for choosing a different path for his family. He went so far as to declare in open court documents that he could not envisage ever feeling safe enough to bring his wife and young children back to his homeland without the absolute guarantee of state-funded armed police protection. Following that devastating legal defeat, the 41-year-old Duke refused to let the matter rest, launching an immediate appeal to the Home Secretary and demanding that the Ravec Committee completely reassess his case based on new perceived threats. His legal and public relations teams aggressively briefed the media early this year that a final, favorable decision was absolutely imminent, expressing supreme confidence that the British government would eventually bow to their demands and restore his full security status. But as the months rolled by and the scheduled date for the Invictus countdown drew closer, a deafening silence settled over the entire issue, with government offices refusing to offer any public updates or concessions. It was against this backdrop of legal stagnation and building pressure that the Duke's public relations machine suddenly swung into absolute overdrive on a Friday night, launching a high-stakes media gamble that would ultimately backfire. By confirming to chosen media outlets that his entire family was definitely coming to the United Kingdom, the Duke attempted to force the government's hand by presenting the arrival of young, high-profile children as an imminent security reality that could not be ignored. It was a bold, aggressive maneuver designed to use public anticipation as leverage against a rigid bureaucratic system. But the victory lasted less than 24 hours before the fragile strategy completely shattered under the weight of reality. The collapse of the highly orchestrated public relations strategy became painfully apparent less than 24 hours after the initial triumphant announcements, giving way to a new and vastly more defensive narrative from the California camp. In a sudden, whiplash-inducing shift that left the global media scrambling to keep pace. Yet another formal pronouncement emerged from the office of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, revealing that Prince Harry was now actively considering leaving his wife and young children behind in California. The justification offered for this dramatic reversal was that the Duke had unexpectedly discovered that the Ravec Security Committee had effectively kicked the critical decision regarding his state protection straight into the long grass, postponing any definitive resolution indefinitely. This sudden roadblock sent shockwaves through the planning team, instantly transforming what had been framed as a historic, joyous family reunion back into an ideological battleground over state resources and royal status. To amplify their immense displeasure and shift public blame away from themselves, the Sussexes communications team immediately engaged major broadcasting networks, with the prominent network ITV soon quoting senior staff members from the Duke's office. These high-level representatives painting a dark and harrowing picture of the couple's current reality, speaking extensively about multiple highly specific security threats directed at Prince Harry, alongside the relentless torrent of targeted online abuse that Meghan faces daily. According to their narrative, these severe and compounding dangers made it completely irresponsible to bring the family to the United Kingdom without the absolute maximum level of state-sponsored police intervention. In a surprising and highly aggressive rhetorical turn, the official briefing from the Duke's office even launched a direct and pointed attack on the British establishment by drawing a highly controversial comparison to the entertainment industry, questioning how global celebrities like American pop star Taylor Swift are somehow able to receive state-funded police escorts when traveling through London. The singer had indeed been granted a specialized Metropolitan Police escort during her high-profile concerts in 2024. But government officials were quick to point out that this rare measure was only implemented after a massive, sophisticated international terror attack targeting one of her major European stadium shows had been actively foiled by global intelligence agencies. By attempting to equate his birthright and security needs with the emergency protocols used for a global pop phenomenon, the Duke's team exposed the depth of their desperation, using any available cultural touchstone to validate their grievances. The rhetoric grew even more intense when a source close to the family spoke to the Guardian newspaper, claiming with immense bitterness that the family's cherished plans to see their royal relatives and visit deeply meaningful charitable causes had been completely and unfairly pulled out from under their feet at the absolute 11th hour. The anonymous spokesperson insisted that the Duke was still desperately looking at every single available option to get his family to the United Kingdom safely. But the underlying message was clear. The historic trip was now on the absolute brink of total cancellation. In a further bid to control the rapidly deteriorating narrative, People magazine published a report suggesting that the family had suddenly departed for a private holiday in continental Europe, fueling widespread rumors that they had recently purchased a luxury estate in Portugal as a permanent European base outside the United Kingdom. The ultimate upshot of this entire dizzying sequence of events is a state of total, unmitigated confusion, where no single observer is any the wiser, and the palace communications team is left frantically scratching their heads in absolute exhaustion. Those operating within the inner royal circles firmly believe that this entire debacle has successfully turned what could have been an incredibly positive, healing public relations milestone for the Sussexes into an absolute disaster before they have even managed to set foot in the country. The deeper tragedy of this ongoing institutional warfare lies in the complete obstruction of what should have been a deeply profound, personal milestone for an aging king and his distant grandchildren. Prince Archie, who is now 7 years old, and Princess Lilibet, now 5, have been raised entirely within the sun-drenched, highly insulated environment of Montecito, California, effectively separated from the historic traditions, ancient palaces, and extended family that form their paternal heritage. The young prince and princess have not seen their grandfather, King Charles, in person since the late Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee celebrations back in 2022, meaning that the 5-year-old princess has virtually no living memory of her royal grandfather. For King Charles, whose reign has been marked by a profound sense of duty alongside significant personal health challenges, the ongoing geographic and emotional estrangement from these young children remains a source of quiet but deep sadness. As a traditional grandfather, the king has long desired to foster a meaningful, affectionate relationship with Archie and Lilibet, wanting to see them playing in the gardens of royal estates alongside their cousins, rather than catching fleeting glimpses of their growth through occasional, highly formal digital screens. The tragedy is amplified by the realization that time is a precious, finite commodity, and the endless bureaucratic and public relations warfare between London and California is actively robbing the family of moments that can never be recovered or repeated. The institutional memory of the British monarchy is long, and senior courtiers cannot help but view this latest security dispute through the lens of recent history, specifically recalling Prince Harry's intense fury last year when he officially lost his landmark court battle against the Home Office. That high-stakes legal challenge was a direct response to the historic 2020 decision by the Ravec committee to strip the Duke of his permanent 24-hour police guard following his highly public resignation from official royal duties. Harry had passionately argued that his inherent risk profile as a high-profile son of the monarch would never truly change, regardless of his official job description, making the removal of his armed guard an act of institutional betrayal. When the British courts ultimately ruled against him, concluding that the state had acted entirely lawfully and proportionately, the Duke's resentment deepened, leading to his public declaration that he felt entirely unsafe bringing his family back to his native soil. His subsequent appeals to the Home Secretary, including the current demand for an independent risk management board, have all been driven by this singular obsessive quest to regain the state-funded protection that symbolizes his enduring royal status. This ongoing battle highlights a fundamental, irreconcilable clash of philosophies, where Prince Harry views security as an unalienable birthright tied to his bloodline, while the British state views it strictly as a finite, taxpayer-funded resource reserved exclusively for those who actively serve the public and the crown. As the days tick down toward the scheduled launch of the Invictus Games countdown events in Birmingham, the grand narrative of a royal family reunion has completely evaporated, replaced by a cold, familiar reality of strategic distance and profound mistrust. What was intended to be a powerful celebration of wounded veterans and international sporting triumph has once again been thoroughly eclipsed by the unrelenting, exhausting psychodrama of the transatlantic royal divide. The palace remains silent, the security committees remain unmoved, and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex remain isolated in their California fortress, leaving the world to watch yet another chapter of a modern tragedy where pride and protocol continue to triumph over family harmony.